for this part. Ko pake a taui riau. Engari, katua au ki wako o te koruai o ngā tikere, ngā pihere, ngā manihiri. Ko Phyllis Tichinin, o korong marae roa toko marae, ko Phyllis Tichinin. Kia ora. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. So, my topic is the soil carbon sponge. Probably wondering, what is the soil carbon sponge and what is its role in our landscapes, in our agriculture, in our climate? Okay, I'm going to do a little demo here. Got the camera? So, on this plate here, we have some flour, which represents the sand, the silt, and the clay particles, the minerals that make up all soils. Okay? No soil on Earth, by our classification, is anything other than basically sand, silt, and clay. On this other plate, we have some bread, which is also flour, and it also represents sand, silt, and clay, but with water added. So, this sand, silt, and clay flour is held together with water in an open structure. You can't quite see them, you can see some big holes there. There are pore spaces all through this version of the soil, okay? So, what's the difference between these two plates? It's biology, okay? We have used yeast, a fungus, a microbe, to create these pore spaces, and in effect made live soil from what is otherwise dead minerals. Okay, so what's actually going on here in the soil? We have a coupling of sunlight, of plants, and of microbes, which creates these pore spaces. The tiny crumbs that you see in there are called aggregates, or soil aggregates. And aggregates is just soil particles that are stuck together with the microbial glues, literally the guts of gazillions of microbes in the soil is what actually creates the soil that is the basis of all life on this planet. And it holds ecosystems together, and it actually turns minerals, rock minerals, into the soil that nourishes us all. So, basically, it's soil microbes that make it possible for plants to capture sunlight and to create the plant sugars that are the source and the source code, genetically, of all life on Earth. So, we depend on photosynthesis for what we eat and breathe, and photosynthesis depends on microbes. That's why the guts and the bodies of microbes in the soil, as represented by this bread, are so important. Because just like our guts and our bodies, everything in an ecosystem depends on the health and the diversity of microbes. Okay? So, that's the intro. Here's the demo. Okay. Right. So we're going to see what happens when it rains on this lifeless flour dirt. Okay? I'm making a little rain cloud here with this cup of water. Now, watch what happens when it rains on dead dirt. Geez, it rained a lot. Big storm. Okay. Right. Now, here's what we see. We see scouring. We see erosion. We see sediment loss. We see nutrient loss. We see flooding. All this water around here that's now sort of whitish and brownish. It's holding our soil particles. And we see wind erosion, okay? The rain that can't sink in because there aren't soil pores. I'm not trying to knock them off, honestly. So the water that can't sink in because there aren't any pore spaces flows off the land into the rivers that rapidly rise, and they run brown with soil and contaminants and pathogens and chemicals and they take our roads, our rivers, and our dams with it out to Moana, where it then deposits and pollutes and changes the environment there. So it all comes back to what's happening with the soil, you know, from the very tops down. Okay, so unfortunately, usually the river, when it's flooding, it will run very quickly, and then it will drop quickly, and then the land will all dry out again. So we have ever-increasing droughts. Now, observe what happens when we're actually raining on life-filled, microbially rich, high soil carbon sponge pore spaces. Oops. Stay on target here. Okay. Now, as you can see, the water's been absorbed. It hasn't run off. There's no erosion, and the water that comes out the bottom is clear and clean. Right? No sudden flooding. This is water that's following its natural course of infiltration, storage, and aquifer replenishment. Healthy, functioning soils, as illustrated by this spread, are actually what is possible with a soil carbon sponge, which entirely depends on microbes. Okay? Most of our ag soils have lost their soil carbon sponge because of our standard ag practices that kill microbes and basically destroy the soil's pore structure, even under grazing, so that many of our soils function like flour instead of functioning like bread. Okay, now, the good thing is, with organic regenerative agriculture, we can actually grow this soil sponge. We can grow soil. Okay, so what happens if we do things regeneratively? We end up with, if we add more water, we can keep growing our soil carbon sponge and our ability to absorb and hold water and replenish aquifers. So we get a landscape that stores carbon and water, that promotes biodiversity and products with more biomass and produces more biomass. We get healthier food with increased consumer appeal, while also reducing our risks, our costs, and our emissions. Farming for soil carbon, for the soil carbon sponge, is farming with the environment and for the environment. Farming doesn't need to be destructive. It's not the cow, it's the how. We can use it to restore the environment, not degrade it. So, I have to come back because it's got a whole bunch more to go on here. But I do want to say something here, which is, you need to remember that we can shift our forestry and ag practices to regenerate natural soil and water processes. We have the solutions to most of these problems we've been talking about here at our feet in regenerative approaches that mimic nature. Don't try to change it. She's been working on this experiment for eons. It works. Imitate her, not necessarily, dare I say it, Western science. Look, hydrology is the flow of water through Papatuanuku's Korowai, up into the realm of Rangi, and back down to nourish Papa. And it is the most powerful way to reverse global warming quickly. Water and soil are our points of agency to safely, naturally cool the planet. We are responsible for the state that we're in, but we are also response-able. Okay? We have degraded or ripped away the mantle of soil that nourishes all life and supports water movement and climate on Earth. We have, in effect, left Papatuanuku naked, starving, thirsty, and running a fever. This must stop now. Your spiritual connection, your determined energy, and using regenerative ecosystem principles can quickly reverse this. Agriculture and how we relate to our landscapes can well and truly reverse this much faster than we imagined before. Okay? So ultimately, I'm going to stop. I won't talk much about regenerative agriculture, except to briefly say there's some paradigms you need to accept. They're based on the way nature functions. That's what your ecosystem functions. We're not making anything up. This isn't new science. It's just saying, let's apply natural processes. Let's imitate them in everything we do in our environment. That is how it's meant to be. That is how we get back what we've lost. Okay, so the key paradigms you need to embrace, because everybody can say, oh, we can't do it without chemicals that kill microbes, and we can't do this and we can't do that. Yes. Okay. The key things you need to remember is that microbes perform better than chemicals, that when soil microbes are healthy, pests and diseases are a non-issue. Remember that. Don't let anybody ever tell you you can't grow food without chemicals. That's a double BS. Okay? And we can restore our soils within 10 years and our landscapes and our water within 20. And I will just stop with the most important thing to remember is honor Papa's Korowai.